In the race to be money, dollar, euros, rupees, they're all losing out. They're all losing in value over time. They are being inflated away. And now people are speculating that gold could be money again. I want to compare gold with Bitcoin to see which of the two has more likelihood of actually becoming money in the future, which of the two shares the properties that are needed to be money on a global scale, on a global level. What we know is that money serves three purposes: medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account. And gold, of course, fulfills all three values, all three properties of money, or rather, that it used to. It is no longer a medium of exchange, it is no longer a unit of account, it is a store of value only. When gold was used as money, it was both a medium of exchange and a unit of account as well. And similarly, that's true for Bitcoin today, because Bitcoin is not money yet. Bitcoin is still quite young. So it acts mostly as a store of value today. No one is using it, to be honest, as a unit of account, and there's close to no adoption as a medium of exchange. But these are things that anyhow are solved for over time. All monies go through this journey of starting out primarily as a store of value, and only then do they get into the medium of exchange and unit of account functions. So that's not necessarily an argument against Bitcoin, it's just a reflection of where it is in its journey. Now, good money tends to share four properties, and this is also something we have discussed yesterday. The first property is that it is scarce, and gold, as you know, is quite scarce, but still gold is being mined at roughly 1 to 2% the existing supply every year. So there's an increase of 1 to 2% in supply of gold every year. It's not a lot, but it still adds up over a long enough time frame. And secondly, there's always a possibility that we'll end up finding some crazy mine, some mine which has an insane amount of gold that can just overwhelm the market with supply. And it's also possible into the future that you might find a moon or a comet or some other planet that is basically made of gold. There are planets, there are moons already that are made of diamonds, for instance. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. In the physical world, it is impossible to have pure scarcity. So gold is scarce, yes, but it is not absolutely scarce, and there's always a possibility for a lot more supply coming on. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is scarce on an absolute level. Its scarcity is determined by code, and hence no physical reality changes it. There will always only be 21 million Bitcoin, and that's it. So scarcity, Bitcoin wins out. Next one is durability. If you look at gold, gold is quite durable. Gold doesn't rust. There are few chemicals, there are few compounds that when they come in contact with gold, they cause it to disintegrate, they cause it to change its chemical composition. So there is that challenge to gold, but that's not something that you would face ordinarily in real life. So you can give gold a 9 out of 10 on durability. But again, Bitcoin here scores basically a 10 on 10, because there is no challenge to Bitcoin's durability apart from a complete wipeout of every single node on the planet everywhere. And that is as unlikely as every single country, every single person on the world agreeing on something. So Bitcoin again scores higher than gold on durability, even though gold has a longer history and hence makes people feel safer. The fundamentals of Bitcoin are stronger. Third is fungibility, which is the ability to just exchange and the willingness to exchange. With gold, fungibility tends to be high, especially when it's of the same form. So if I have a coin and you have a coin, you'll be willing to exchange freely. If I have a bar and you have a bar, you'll be willing to exchange freely. But if I have a gold necklace and you have a coin, then there might be issues. Even though the total weight of gold is the same, people would not be as willing to exchange it so freely, because there are different costs involved to making a coin versus making a chain. And also there are emotional, sentimental values that people put to these things, especially to jewelry that they wear or that they've inherited from someone in their family. So fungibility, gold is high on, but not too high. I would put it at maybe a 7 out of 10 or even an 8 out of 10. But when it comes to Bitcoin, it doesn't matter which sat you have. It doesn't matter what part of the Bitcoin that you have or where it's coming from. It's all the same. It's just a number out of the total number there is out there. So Bitcoin basically again scores a 10 on 10 on fungibility. I need to stop using the word basically so much. Finally, and this is the counterintuitive one, that good money tends to be otherwise quite useless. And I explained this yesterday in the same video I mentioned, that if you have a particular thing that is money, let's say a box of cookies, then that quantity represents all the value in the world, has to account for all transactions in the world, and every gram of that box of cookie will then be worth trillions when you think of it as money, when you use it as money, but will be worth only a few rupees or a few cents when you think of it as food. So there's competing use cases, and that's not a good thing for money. So what usually wins out as money is something that is more useless than its competitors. Gold is quite useless because it's not hard enough to be an industrial metal. It is too soft to even be used as jewelry in its purest form. It has to be mixed with other metals. It has to be created, an alloy has to be created out of it for it to be used even as jewelry. So gold is pretty useless, but it is not completely useless. So I would still rate it at a 6 or 7 on 10 on uselessness. Bitcoin is completely useless. The only use really there is of Bitcoin is as money. There are cases where people put up NFTs and such on the blockchain. There are attempts to put smart contracts and such. You can argue that as these things actually take hold and become more prevalent, that this aspect of Bitcoin gets weaker. But for now, it scores a 9 on 10 on uselessness. So far on all properties, I didn't rank scarcity, but even on scarcity, gold would be 8 or 9 on 10 and Bitcoin would be a 10 on 10. So Bitcoin does better than gold on all these properties already. Now let's look at the challenges that gold faced that caused it to stop being money, that caused paper money and then eventually ledger money to take over. The first challenge that we faced with gold was divisibility. So how do you break gold into smaller and smaller chunks for smaller and smaller transactions, like going to a market and buying one apple? How much gold do you pay for that? How do you keep track of that gold? How do you shave that much amount off accurately? So divisibility was a problem with gold. Bitcoin, there is infinite divisibility. Not infinite. One Bitcoin is 100 million sats, but that's more divisibility than you will need. And if needed, you can increase the divisibility. The code has the provision for a soft fork where we can make a consensus. The node operators, the miners, can arrive at a consensus and move to a future where the number of Bitcoin is still fixed. It's just more divisible and you can have more units. So again, that's not a problem. So gold would score very low on divisibility, maybe a 2 on 10, but Bitcoin would score again a 10 on 10 on divisibility. Next was the problem of, just give me a second. Gold was not divisible. Verifiability. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. The problem with gold was that people knew that you can mix in different alloys, different metals in there, create an alloy out of gold, and it would still look just the same. So to verify whether a piece of gold, a bit of gold that you're getting is actually 100% pure, the only way to do that is to completely melt it and then recast it, and that would separate out other metals from whatever piece of gold that you've given. And the process of melting and recasting costs roughly 1 to 2% of the total value of the gold that you hold. So every time you want to verify whether a piece of gold is 100% pure or not, you will have to lose 1 to 2% of the value of that gold. You do that enough times, of course, you've lost all your value. But another issue with that is, let's say you've done it once. Let's say you have the Reserve Bank of India that claims it has, I don't know how many ever tons of gold in its reserves, and you go and you check it once. You spend all that money, all those resources, you spend 1 to 2% of all of Reserve Bank of India's gold holdings, and you check all of it. The moment you step out of the room, you don't know if someone's come and replaced a legit gold bar with something else. And you can argue here, I can hear you arguing that, oh, but we can install a CCTV camera, we can install this, we can install that. It doesn't work. You know, CCTV cameras footage can be botched. You know, someone can always come in and do something, just play around, mess around with the gold. You never know if someone who claims to have a certain amount of gold actually A has that gold, and B, if they have the gold, whether it is pure or not. So verifiability is quite challenging with gold. I would rate it at maybe a 5 on 10. But with Bitcoin, it is both 100% verifiable and at zero cost. You just enter the address that the person holds their Bitcoin in, the public address. If they claim they have, let's say, 10 Bitcoins, you just ask for their public address. If the RBI says we hold 10 Bitcoin, or if the US government says we hold 10,000 Bitcoins, you just ask for the address, and you just put the address in a blockchain tracker, and you know exactly how many Bitcoins they hold, when the transactions happened, with what addresses they happened, at zero cost. So verifiability is more reliable and free of cost. So again, a 10 on 10 for Bitcoin, while like a 5 on 10 for gold. The next problem that gold faced was security. Whenever you transport gold, whenever you carry gold with you, whenever you have to make a transaction, the act of having that physical gold on you is a security threat. It's a security risk. That would put gold on, let's say, again, a 5 on 10 on security, maybe even lower, maybe 4 on 10. The thing with Bitcoin is that it also has security concerns. With Bitcoin, the passphrase, the private key that you have, the chain of 12 or 24 words that you have, that is the key to all your Bitcoin. That is your security concern. You need to guard that very properly. You need to be very careful in how you store it. You need to ensure that you don't have that on any digital device, any device that can be hacked, that can be compromised, that can be accessed by anyone else. So that is a security concern with Bitcoin. The second layer you can think of a security concern, but that would also be a concern with just normal bank transfers and UPI payments, is, let's say you hold some amount of your Bitcoin in a Lightning wallet on your phone, and if your phone gets compromised, if someone can access your phone, they can spend that amount. But that's true also for your bank account money, that's true also for your UPI money. So it would put it on par with current systems when it comes to security of the small amount that you're using on wallet, and it would put it not exactly on par with gold. It's better than gold, because with gold, every time you make a transaction, you have to carry it with you if gold is money. But with Bitcoin, the passphrase, the private key itself, can remain safely somewhere, and you can just use a partially signed transaction to move funds whenever you need to, without compromising the private key in any shape or form. This is slightly technical, I know, but the point is that Bitcoin would score a 7 on 10, where a gold would score maybe a 4 or 5 on 10 on security. But the biggest challenge with gold, the fourth challenge, was that information technology systems improved so rapidly that information was traveling instantaneously from anywhere in the world to anywhere else, while gold took days, if not weeks, to travel, with all sorts of costs and security challenges involved. Bitcoin solves for this, and Bitcoin solves for this spectacularly. The cost for moving Bitcoin from one location to another is close to nothing. On the main blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain, currently it would cost you 15 rupees or 15 cents to move any amount of Bitcoin. It is irrespective of the quantity that you move. That's how cheap it is. So you can move billions of dollars or trillions of rupees in Bitcoin for 15 rupees of a transaction charge. That's how cheap it is. And even though it is not as instantaneous as UPI, which is a within country payment, it is still faster than any cross border payment mechanism that exists out there. So Swift, for instance, takes 2 to 3 working days, and if there's a weekend in between or a holiday, it will take longer. Bitcoin will take you 30 minutes at max. So Bitcoin is also faster than any existing network that you have. And when it comes to even faster transactions, or transactions as fast as UPI in India, you have the Lightning Network, a layer 2 solution on top of the main blockchain that is as fast and basically free. It is not exactly free, but the cost is a few paisa, even lower in some cases. So it's nothing. It is basically for free, and it is instantaneous as well. So coming to the challenge of information technology systems and technological sufficiency for the 21st century, gold would rank at 1 or 2 out of 10. Bitcoin, with the blockchain and layer 2 and layer 3 solutions on top, is again at a 10 on 10. There is nothing in the existing network, in the existing rails, whether it is Visa, whether it is MasterCard, whether it is Swift, whether it is some other cross-border payment, or even UPI locally speaking, Bitcoin is at least as good or better than all of these on whatever that they specialize in. And Bitcoin is a single thing that can do all of this. UPI is only good within your country, Swift is only good within certain networks of countries, and it follows certain sets of rules. Bitcoin, you're free to do what you want. So, in so many ways, Bitcoin is better than gold. So it's obvious to me that as we move forward, as technology advances, as we move to a world where information flows even more faster, where the world shrinks, where we are even more connected, where travel around the world and living around the world becomes even more common, it is very obvious the money that is suited to the needs of the 21st century and the 22nd century and so on, it's Bitcoin.